exciting day this is.
Yay, getting ready for PQs.
Our last stream before Vegas.
Yep, that's right.
I mean, are we allowed to report back from Vegas? What happens? I thought that was the rule.
That's right, you can't.
You can't do that,
What
right?
happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Well, not if you get the PQ championship.
Yeah, that's right.
That's not staying in
No,
Vegas.
he definitely won't. I'll be telling the whole world. Or you.
Yeah, and we're joined today by somebody who knows really well what it feels like to win a PQ championship, right?
Awesome.
Jeff,
Love it.
Did Jeff jump into Discord yet? I think he is.
Yeah, I'm here. Hey guys.
Hey,
Yay.
Jeff.
Frank, Courtney.
Let me do a little check on the mics. Discord, talk again, Jeff?
Yeah.
Check, check. Hello.
Yep,
Yeah,
all right.
Sounds like it's coming
We've
through.
got it.
Perfect.
Great. So,
Love
Courtney, why don't you fill Jeff in on what we're planning to do today?
So this morning Frank and I have been putting together obviously our decks for leaving tomorrow. Since we're leaving tomorrow, try to get everything packed up. So we thought today actually might be a great idea to get some help from our viewers and experts like you to finalize our deck list and sideboard also. So we're both differing on some things. So we're going to run slightly different deck lists.
Right.
And sideboard, so
And
I think.
we also had in our Bothan Network Discord channel, one of our public members asked for help with his sideboard. So I thought Jeff it'd be fun too to look at another version of Green Sabine with that you haven't seen before.
Yeah.
And it's not that different.
I had somebody reach out on Instagram too, wanting help with their sideboard.
Yeah.
So I told them watch today for sure.
Right. So I thought and the video on
demand.
demand for this will be up on YouTube later for
Right.
people who couldn't watch Jeff and I and you talk about
Right.
Green Sabine sideboards. Obviously, it's a hot topic. It's a hot deck in the meta. Jeff's proven you can win an entire PQ with it.
Right.
So yeah, let's.
Big tournaments, yeah, because if your opponent's using dice or tokens, they might not nefariously, but they might accidentally bump their dice, and it's just nice having a reference and say, oh, actually you're at 17 damage, not 16 damage.
Several
Or if they
times.
miss a
Several
Sabine
times
King or
that's come
something.
up. Mhm.
And I actually like
Yeah.
to at the end of every turn, I'll say, okay, I have this and this. Is that right? Because
Right.
I
It
bet-
helps me think too.
Right,
To
and
make
keep
sure
people
I
from
know.
cheating you,
Mhm.
and then I can look at the board
Exactly.
easily and say, okay, I have this much damage to go. This
Right.
is what's on the table, and
Yeah. I actually made a misplay at Gen Con when my opponent had been counting down. I mean, yeah, they were counting down.
it makes me
and they're not. I don't think you're allowed to do that. I think you have to count
No,
up.
see, those are the rules I need to.
So I had miswritten the damage on my base, and it just coincidentally, because it was right in the middle of the damage,
Right.
it just coincidentally matched what they had, but they were counting down and I was counting up.
Yeah.
And so I thought I was one action closer to killing them than I actually was.
Yeah.
Oh well, that
I
happens.
know. And we've seen it happen on streams even this past weekend at PQs,
Right.
where damage wasn't done right.
Yeah,
so.
we watched a lot
we
of
do
streams.
we do it here.
Sure.
So,
It was
yeah.
so cool to have
very
like
important.
so many amazing PQ streaming for us to watch this weekend. But the entertainment capital of the world, Pasadena, gave us nothing.
That's right.
Jeff, nothing.
Yeah.
Well, to
That's
be
why we
fair,
have to have it on
Hollywood is not Pasadena, so
Okay.
they're 20 minutes away from Hollywood. so
20
they don't-
minutes
They don't
in
know how to
Hollywood, you can't
record
get a
stuff over
stream
there.
going.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Now, I know your brother works in the movie industry, right? Chris does movie camera work, right?
Yeah, so I do pretty much the same thing as Chris.
Oh,
He's a crane operator. I'm not the operator. I'm the crane tech. I work for a different company, but we do the same kind of jobs.
Well,
So,
real
yeah.
quick for any of our viewers, especially on the video on demand later on YouTube at Blonde Sabine, who may not be familiar with our episode. Was it 2 days ago now that we interviewed you,
And it
Jeff?
actually went pushed to all our social medias or whatever this
Good.
morning.
Okay. So anyway,
It's a
so real
reminder.
quick, just give us a recap of why we are talking to you, champion. What'd you do last weekend, Jeff?
Winner.
Well, I went to the Pasadena PQ, and I went 6-1 in Swiss, and was able to make
Love
the
it.
top 8 out of 116 people. I felt very
So
lucky that
awesome. Yes, there's always a
I
big
made it.
element of luck. Yeah.
Yeah. And then after 3 more rounds, I came out the champion. I couldn't believe it.
Incredible. So exciting.
Woo! And
Yay.
we'll use that segue to look at your deck list then
Yeah.
from
Okay.
the Pasadena PQ. Isn't that, don't you like the title? Isn't that a hot title?
Yeah, it looks pretty good.
It
next
looks
to that
really
list,
good. Pasadena
saying
PQ champion.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Like the look of that.
So
Awesome.
yeah, so here's your list. I
Okay.
That's what
know
I ran yesterday.
you did a lot of this work comes from the KTOD Green Sabine, where you and I both are active in there. They've got great
Yeah,
guys like
that was
Justin and
the shell
Chrono.
that I started with,
Yeah.
and then I saw some of the ideas you were messing around with having the Bright Hopes main,
Hmm.
and I really liked. I after trying that out, I really liked that. And I know you for a while were running Frank and Courtney. You guys were running Sundari Peacekeepers main,
Yeah,
Right.
we're gonna talk about
and I
that
like
today
that a
too.
lot
Hmm.
in the mono yellow matchups,
Oh,
Han
it's so
and
good.
Boba.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Han isn't too popular out here in California. I know Troy Yamaguchi, he runs it, but not a lot of people run it, so I wasn't too worried about seeing that. Bobby Yellow is very popular, but I felt so good in that matchup that I felt like I could take the Sindaris out and bring the Fighters for Freedom back in, and this is where I ended up. And the
That's
Bright
awesome.
Hopes were the MVP pretty much all day. I loved them in almost every matchup I faced.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
you're running
I've
three,
told
is it?
people, huh?
Two. You're running two. Okay. I see
Two
that
in the
now.
sideboard,
Two,
Yeah.
yeah.
which is really our
Um,
big topic today. We're gonna talk a
Mhm.
lot about sideboarding
Mhm.
with Jeff, and all three of us put our brains together and come up with some ideas for because we got the Vegas PQ
That's
this
my
weekend,
hardest.
right? So we need to know what we're gonna be handling these matchups this weekend, Jeff, and all people
yeah, there's a
viewing
lot of
and
people that were at
yeah.
Pasadena that I know are going to Vegas, so
Yay! Awesome.
you'll see some of the same kind of decks that I was facing probably.
What,
Yeah.
right. What was one thing that was interesting to me was there wasn't a lot of green boba in your Pasadena top eight.
That's
There wasn't
that may
any.
change
Yeah,
after this weekend though.
most people are on the ECL version still. That's what I had been facing mostly. A few like in the store showdowns leading up. Um, and not I think just because the New Jersey and the Dallas PQ happened the day before, people didn't want to switch up their decks last minute.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes
So it
perfect
And
was a little
sense.
too soon.
let me give a quick shout out. KC Kid 07 just
Yay!
subscribed
Thank you.
using that Prime free membership subscription. We get a bunch of those. Those are
That's
good
awesome.
to give us.
Love
And
it.
thanks for
Yeah.
the follow and thanks for hanging out with us. That's really appreciated, Kid.
Absolutely.
And if you want, he asked a question in chat about where this video on demand is posted. So, Courtney, where do you post these?
So we post them to YouTube. They're a little bit more delayed because we edited for YouTube some, and then
Usually
and
within a
on
day or
those.
two, though.
But
they're
usually,
up.
yeah, usually by the
Yeah.
night, sometimes within a day,
Mhm.
within 24 hours. But you can also come and watch them on Twitch.
Yeah, Twitch
They're
has the
they're
videos for
saved
7 days,
for
I
7
think.
days. Yeah.
But yeah, come check us out on YouTube and follow
Thanks. Yeah, we
or
love it.
subscribe there as well. So Jeff, you're thinking they didn't want to change from yellow boba to green last minute because literally was the day before your PQ
Right.
that green
His was
boba
on
popped
Sunday.
off.
And that's what
Yeah, I know
yeah.
one person that did, and he didn't do that well, and he might have gotten unlucky, but also I think, if you just play 20 games with it the day before
That's
and
not
you
enough.
make a swap, that you're not going to
Hmm.
do as well as if you have hundreds of
Right.
games on yellow boba.
Yeah, you gotta
Right.
get the reps in.
There's
So,
definitely part of that yellow shell that's good for someone coming over, but honestly, green boba plays so different than yellow boba. Yellow boba's an aggro deck that wants to have a little tempo to help them get those surprise strikes and cunning damage on your
Right.
base. Green boba, especially into those kind of matchups, are way more of a controlling style, don't you think, Jeff?
yeah. Yeah, I played around with the green boba a little bit in the last few days, and I have a lot of games on yellow boba, and wasn't doing well. Like I could
Hmm.
tell it would take a lot more practice. You have a lot more clunky hands leading into your flip turn if you don't have like the dream of the boba's armor and the overwhelming barrage. With yellow boba, it's pretty much impossible not to get the full 7 or 8 resource value on the flip turn because you have so many cards that
Yeah.
bounce and
Hmm.
ambush, and you just always get those resets
Even
on your
waylays.
resources.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I put up the deck list from the Dallas PQ winner. It'd be fun to have a grudge match online sometime
It would
between
be.
you and we'll see if we can find the Dallas PQ winner and let Jeff and him battle on stream.
Oh,
That'd be so
man.
much
Cool.
fun.
I'd love
Because
that.
I played the
We
deck.
can commentate.
Yeah, I played it yesterday against you, Courtney, and I thought I had you. And how did you pull that out yesterday in Game 3?
Man, it was luck.
I know, but what was the combo that I think I misplayed in hindsight? you heroic
Yeah.
sacrificed a K2SO for 11 damage or
At the
something.
very end,
Was it
yep.
4, 5, 6, 9 damage? I mean, a red 3 in play, or
Right.
maybe? I don't know.
That's a key card we got to talk about today too.
We do need to talk about
Yeah.
it. Jeff, it feels like red 3 is just so important in the green boba
Green Boba
matchup.
Yeah.
Yeah, even
Going,
more
if
so
you
than
can
Yeah.
get
yellow.
space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
Because
is
you
it
want
about red
that
3?
Poe. So with Poe on the Boba flip, you really want to be ECLing Poe into Boba, obviously.
Sure,
And if he has
correct.
armor, you already have to discard a card to destroy the armor.
Right.
So when you have red 3 out, Poe swings for 7, which is just enough to kill
Perfect.
Boba, and you don't need a discard for the 2 damage.
Mm-hmm.
So you
And
can either save a card or kill something else with that 2 damage.
right, and then Boba also can run some of those 3/5, even a 4-long with 4 health.
Yeah.
And the red 3 lets your 3 power units kill them if you need to.
Yeah.
Even
Yep.
Gamorrean guards. We haven't seen Gamorrean guards. They haven't appeared anywhere yet. But I'm always ready for a Gamorrean guard to come back because that's also a good red 3 thing to help you. A little lowly battlefield marine trade with a Gamorrean guard or something.
Right.
But it hadn't come up so far. So what do you think the meta is going to be? This weekend, Jeff. What's your thoughts now that you've crushed a PK
So
yourself?
if I was on Sabine, I would definitely be hoping that people were prepping for green Boba, because then that means there's going to be more hard control, more blue Bach, more Kira control, maybe even Iden control. And that sounds pretty good as a Sabine player to me. I'd much
Right.
rather people be
Yeah.
That
teching for
sounds like
that
an
than teching for
all-you-can-eat
Sabine.
buffet for Sabine. Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love it.
So I don't love the green Boba matchup, but if everyone's teching for that and not Sabine, then you might get lucky and be able to dodge most of the green Bobas and have them getting taken out by all the control, and then you
Right.
can feast on those control.
Well, let's start with green Boba then. Looking at your deck list. So let's say you knew you're going into a green Boba match, or let's say you're in one, you're going to game 2. What deck changes? First off, what deck changes would you have made before the tournament if you think green Boba is going to be a bigger part of the meta? And second, what would you do after game 1?
And does it matter if they're running ECL or not?
Okay,
That's
that's a good
another
question
question,
too. Yeah.
That is a good question, because I did have a different plan depending on if it was ECL or a 30 point.
Gotcha.
So we'll start there then.
So
Yeah. What do you think about the 30-point versus ECL Bobas?
So the ECL Boba, a lot of times what they're trying to do is ECL early in space and kind of control the space, because they have the 7th Fleet Defender that can ECL an A-Wing,
Oh yeah.
do the damage,
that.
and then
Yeah.
they can shield it afterwards, and then they have basically a 7th Fleet that can trade with 3 of your ships before it
Right.
dies. Because that's such a blowout, I was trying to take red 3s out actually versus ECL Boba, because it's just so scary to drop a red 3 and just have it get ECL'd, and then the ship that
That's a
ECL'd
really
it
good
still
point.
survives.
Make a note of that, Courtney.
Yeah, I am. I'm making notes over
Making
here. Trust
notes.
me, I'm taking notes from the expert over here.
And we're gonna watch it back anyway.
Yeah,
but
absolutely. Tomorrow on
on
the plane.
on the video demand, yeah. But definitely that's a really good first sideboard suggestion.
Yeah.
I know Master Jedi Adam is looking for some sideboard ideas too.
Yeah.
We're gonna look at his deck list in a moment. But red 3 may be out against ECL Boba because they can ECL in those 7th Fleet Defenders.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But-
and then I was also pulling
Yeah.
Rebel Assaults out versus them, and I brought
Against
in my
ECL?
Adelphis
Uh-huh.
against ECL, yeah. And I brought in the Adelphis, the timely interventions, and the heroic sacrifices for the Rebel Assault.
Okay. What do you like about Heroic Sack versus Rebel Assault into Boba Green? Or is it just the ECL?
So
Boba Green?
Boba ECL, they're ECLing early, and they're trying to trade and take something out and have their units survive. So you're really not having a lot of rebels surviving the early game.
Mm-hmm.
So heroic sacrifice is nice because you only need 1 unit. You get that the full +2 pump, and it works on your non-rebels as well. So if you're bringing in a Delphi, your Poes, your Wreckers, all those can still get the full +2 pump, and they don't need to be a rebel.
That's a great
Like
point.
Rebel
Yeah.
Assault's really nice early game when you have all those early rebel units, but if they're getting ECL'd and getting controlled early, you're just not going to get the full value out of it.
And the 30-point Boba doesn't trade units as often because they can't ECL early.
Right.
That's very
Yeah,
good.
so I've been keeping the Rebel Assault in for 30 points at
Okay.
Boba, and I've been removing my Fighters for Freedom
Okay.
because those are really a lot of the 30 points don't even run the Crafty Smuggler, which is what is it's really nice against. And
Yeah,
then, they
I
don't
didn't
have a
see
lot of
Crafty
Sentinels.
anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
I looked at all the Green
Yeah,
Boba lists that did great this past weekend, the successful ones, and there was no Crafty Smugglers to be found.
Yeah.
It's definitely a yellow Boba
Mm-hmm.
card because yellow Boba likes it because that shield sometimes lets them put their +3s and +4s on them, and not worry about them dying, or a blaster on a
Yeah.
shielded 2/2. But Boba Green doesn't need to do that. As a matter of fact, when you look at the Boba Green list, though, they do have blasters main deck. So
Yeah.
what are they putting the blasters on? I think one of the problems is early game the blaster isn't helping them. They can trade because their units don't have a lot of health.
Right.
So they put a blaster on a Greedo, he's gonna die. What else could they put a Bazine, that's gonna die.
Mm-hmm.
So
what I've seen some of them do is they put the armor and then the blaster on Boba, and then he's
no,
sitting
that's their
face
dream.
down.
Yeah, that's what they want
Yeah,
to do.
that's
But when they play into Green Sabine, though, as you know, and we're the aggro for sure in that matchup.
yeah.
Especially the 30-point, well, all of them, but the 30-point or ECL Boba. I don't know how they can use the blaster early to do more than just trade. They don't.
Mm-hmm.
They can't use the blaster and kill our unit, and their unit lives because they don't have anything.
Yeah.
Maybe on Boba unit, but now you're on 4 resources before that could happen anyway. By then we're flipping Sabine, so maybe they could use the blaster with Boba unit to kill Sabine when she flips. That's a
I
possibility.
found they're usually trying to ramp on 3 resources anyway, so
Mhm.
Boba Fett
Yeah.
doesn't actually come out until later. He comes out off Pavader or on the 5+3 resource turn on the Boba flip,
Right.
but he's usually not coming out too early.
Because Bobo Green wants to use the Super Laser Tech or the resupply on turn 2. And as an aggro player, I usually don't mind it if they resupply. Or even play the Super Laser Tech because I don't like them ramping, of course, but it's not changing the board state. And I'm getting a unit out that they're not dealing with my unit. So that they spend, we're going to put out a better first turn unit than they are, 100%. Look at how crappy their first turn is. So we are putting out a better first turn unit, and then on top of that, if they ramp on turn 2, we've got now one of our really good 3-drops. Let's go look at Jeff's deck again. You might either get a 3/5 Cassian on the board, or maybe Fleet Lieutenant, or I guess the dream, of course, is first turn into a wing leader, right? Is that the dream scenario for you, Jeff? Is that what you're
The
really
dream
shooting
is A-wing into wing leader against the 30
for?
points, because they don't have that ECL that you're worried about in space. So I just want to go full space, and then if
Yeah,
they drop a super laser tech, what are they going to run it into? They don't have
yeah,
anything to run it into. So then they have to wait till you flip Sabine on the 4 resource turn, and you can kind of just play a game with them of like they're guessing when you're going to flip Sabine. You just keep playing in space, and then if they just keep passing, you might not even want to flip Sabine to delay that Boba flip, and you can just go the next turn with initiative and hit them with a big Rebel Assault.
yeah. That's hot.
Yeah.
That's super hot. And so really, it's a scenario where in the Green Boba, if they ramp on turn 2 and their first turn play wasn't disruptive, like a Greedo or something that traded with our first turn unit, if they didn't disrupt us on turn 1 at all, we're going into the Sabine flip turn, probably representing another 10 damage on top of the 5 to 8 damage we've probably already got on. So we're getting them within probably 10 to 12 damage from killing them, if not better, going into 5 resources, where now it's just, did we draw our Poe or not? Do we have our Poe coming to keep them from getting ahead of us, keep them from a bad OB against us? And then I think we've got the game. Courtney, you played against Green Boba this weekend.
Yeah.
And you had actually 2 matches, 5 games against it, and you won 4 of them.
Right.
Why did you feel like you were winning the Green Boba with your Green Sabine?
Well, honestly, my Rebel Assault came through for me on a lot of those games at the very end. And trying to remember exactly, but I ended up putting a Dark Saber on, I believe it was Sabine unit at one point. No, it was R2D2. That's what it was.
And we're going to talk about R2.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm glad you brought up R2, Jeff, because if we go to our list, let me show you all our Vegas. This is our Vegas PQ list. This is my version. Courtney's version is a little different. She's on 3 Rebel Pathfinders, not the A-Wing, and she's on 2 Fighters for Freedom main deck, not the Peacekeepers like I am. But
I know. We
got to talk about that.
Yeah, we got to talk about that. Yeah.
Because as Jeff just mentioned, if we think we're going to go into a Boba Green meta, I don't know that Fighters for Freedom main deck makes sense.
Right.
What do you think, Jeff? Now that you know it's a Boba Green,
So
let's say it's a
so I
Boba
never
Green
It may
meta.
not be.
got a
What
chance
changes
to tell
would you
you
make?
what my post PQ into a green boba setup is. So like you said, I did bring in 2 Sundaris instead of the Fighters for Freedom.
Right,
I didn't
I'm
make
starting
any
those
actual
main
deck changes, but I swapped some stuff from the sideboard into the main.
Yeah.
So I swapped the Sundaris for the Fighters, and I took out 1 Metal Ceremony and 1 Rebel Assault to bring in the 2 Timely Interventions main. So I'm at 2 Metals, 2 Rebels, and 2 Timely Interventions.
That's super
And
close to us.
Yeah,
we just aren't.
yeah.
The only thing, that's what I'm
And
trying to debate on metal.
yeah, and that's just to give just a little more flexibility. I really loved the Timely Interventions, but I liked them in the sideboard because it gave me flexibility of what to pull out to bring them in for each matchup.
Right.
But against Boba Green, the Timelies are pretty nice because you
we
can,
think so
if they
too.
drop a Greedo, you can just Timely a Sabine unit and a Greedo on turn 2 if you
That's
want
hot.
and get
And it's
that free
easy.
kill.
That's sexy talk.
And it
there.
can be an easy
Yeah.
resource too, and just
Right.
Yeah,
I don't know.
You can always
exactly.
resource the Timely and bring it back later when you need it.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah. And you still have those 2 Rebel Assaults, which are, like Courtney said, can be huge in the green boba as that final blow. Hit them with the 2 attacks to finish them off at the end.
So I want to pitch an idea to you, Jeff. As you can see in our deck list, we've done a couple things spicy. I know. Well, first, Derry D brings up our Zeb. We are main decking 1 Zeb, and I'm gonna explain that for chat since he brought it up before I talk about R2. But we want to put 4 Poes in the deck. We really wanted to always be drawing Poe on 5 resources.
Right.
So we looked at what could we do other than Poe to have a 4th Poe. And Zeb does some really nice things. He into a lot of magic.
And he's a rebel.
He's a rebel, which is also
That's
good
huge.
because you don't have any 5+ drops out of rebels.
Right.
But also against Kira, he is just a wrecking ball. Because I mean, like, I even had a game yesterday in testing where they had a Pike Sentinel out. Yeah, and they thought they were safe to flip Kira with the Pike Sentinel, and I drew Zeb, not Poe, so I was able to ECLN Zeb, kill the Pike Sentinel, do the 4 damage to Kira. It was Chef's Kiss, baby. It felt so good. They scooped right after that. Because honestly, Zeb is not as good as Poe. We want to draw Poe. I'm not in any way suggesting we don't want Poe on 5 resources.
Yeah, resource Poe over Zeb.
But as you know, I mean, it's like only like 40% of the games you will not have a Poe by 6 resources. Or 5 resources. It's
And
a
I see
pretty
you have those 3
significant
R2s to help find the Poe as well.
and that's where we wanted to get to next, because I got 2 reasons to go ahead and go to 3 R2, which looks crazy to a lot of people.
Right.
Here's my reasoning. 1, we gotta dig for Poe. It's so many matchups, we win or lose if we have a Poe or not.
Right.
Second is now against Green Boba. In these decks, even some yellow Boba running the McClunky pack. McClunky, how do you say that? McClunky package?
I think you say it both ways.
Yeah, I say it all kinds of ways. R2 can't be first turn killed. And it can't be ECL'd by Green Sabine either.
Right.
So, as you know, it's still so bad when you put down a Sabine unit and they ECL in a Sabine unit and kill yours. It's like, oh, I'm so far behind right now, right?
Right.
So what do you think about those 2 lines of logic on R2 now that the meta is into this McClurky and into seeing a lot of the Green Sabine
I
mirrors?
definitely think that having the 1/4 body for the to counter the McClunky is smart. That makes a lot of sense to me. The Zeb, I'm gonna have to see you see the Zeb in action to be fully on board with him. But I see the reasoning. What did you pull out for the Zeb? So are you? I'm trying to see.
So that's what the
So
thing is.
you're just
kinda
less
taking
on
out
3
meta
drops
serum.
then?
Well, only light, and then I went to 2 peacekeepers, not 3,
Oh
because it's
no,
still.
so you don't have the medal ceremonies. That's pretty much
That's
Right,
where
it's a
we're
it.
medal
light.
ceremony.
Yeah, yeah,
We have gone
So then do you just
round and round on medal ceremony. It feels like a
yeah.
great when it hits, it's wonderful, but you're already doing well when it hits. It's like, is it a win more card? But when you're like either in a really tight one or behind, and you top deck a medal ceremony, like, ugh, I really needed I
Yeah.
needed something, and I top decked a medal ceremony.
For me,
It can feel
it feels
bad
like
sometimes.
yeah, it feels like I'm resourcing it more than I'm using it.
Right.
Well,
So
I
that's
would
my
say
like,
when you're
ugh.
trying to use it to force yourself not to resource it, and then you'll kind of see the situation.
See, that's
Then the
yeah,
situations will come up where you realize when it's good. Because if you're
yeah,
always resourcing it, you never have it for when it is good. And then you're like, oh, this card sucks. I'm always resourcing it. But if you force yourself not to resource it, then the
right.
situations will come up and you'll see kind of the strength.
How
Because even
useful
if
it
you use
is.
it on one unit, sometimes that 1 point of damage is what you need to change the math on an overwhelming barrage or to
Right,
get
that's
a
true.
Sabine leader out of takedown range.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you don't always need to get the full value out of it or even 2 units value out of it. But
Yeah,
I
that was the
understand
other
the
thing I was gonna
hate,
say. A lot of
Frank.
time I use it
I've
on one unit.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
yes, and I've drawn 3 of them in a row, 2 turns in a row, and I've been
Ooh.
like, why the hell are these metal ceremonies in my deck when I'm drawing them late game?
Yeah.
I got no
Right.
units to use them on. It feels bad, but
And another subtle thought about this, Joyce, is since we're on 3R2s, we're looking for, it's going to increase our chances of getting a Poe. And if we had medal ceremonied on resource 4, when I ECL in Poe, I also noticed I often either didn't have enough cards to discard to do what I wanted to do, or I was discarding something amazing, like, something
A record.
great,
Yeah.
a wrecker for the next turn, or
Yeah.
a dark saber, or a fleet lieutenant to win, or a 4 cause to win next turn. Because it's like the playing the card for free has an anti synergy, in my opinion, with ECLing in Poe. What do you think about
hmm
that idea?
that
I
makes
mean, that's
sense.
something to think
Yeah.
about. Yeah, for sure.
So
I mean, that's the great thing about this game, and this, even a deck like Sabine, where pretty much everyone's running 50 of the same cards, and they're
mm-hmm.
just choosing 10 different cards that
Right.
fit their personality and their play style, and there can still be so many different choices and so many different slight variations of the deck that really change how the games go.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the beauty of it.
So before we look at Adam's list and walk through his sideboard, we have a lot of Twitch chat messages to start catching up on.
Yay,
So let's
so
go back.
exciting.
I'll just go from bottom up here. Welcome, Mickey D. Mickey D brings up the point that the medal ceremony is volatile. Is that volatile? Am I saying that right?
Volatile?
Volatile.
Oh, can't see
Yeah.
that, sorry.
That it's so dependent on the context of the situation.
Right.
So that either leads, though, maybe this is. So let me ask you it this way, based on Mickey's comment. What do you think, Jeff? Is medal ceremony a high skill card?
Oh, there you go. Maybe that's.
Is
what
it a
is.
high skill card?
Yeah.
Where like the
It's
really
I
good
wouldn't.
pilots know
Kind of
how to
seems
get
that way, doesn't
get
it?
either know, okay, now it's time to resource it. That in itself is a huge decision.
Right.
Or no, okay, now's the time to play the ceremony.
Probably so.
Yeah, it's definitely got a skill ceiling, but I would say it's a subtle card where you don't really realize how powerful it is at first glance. Because you're just putting sometimes you're just putting one little experience on something, but the fact that it's free,
Mm-hmm.
it makes a huge difference sometimes just having that free experience that you put out. But it's also a very low ceiling, high ceiling, low floor card where when it's
Mm-hmm.
bad, it's really bad, and when it's
Right.
great, it just wins you the game. If you get
Mm-hmm.
the full 3 unit value off of it, you just win the game sometimes. So I do agree with the volatility of it,
Yeah.
where man, sometimes you hate to see it.
Hey Ray, good to see you in chat today. Ray brings up the point that the Desperado Freighter is a nice 5-drop that he uses
Oh, there you
as
go.
a 4th Poe. My thought on the Desperado Freighter, though, is I just purely like the Valiant Assault Ship better. It comes out on 4 resources, and it has such synergy with Wrecker that when you kill a resource, now your Valiant Assault Ship is hitting for
Still
2
attacking.
more.
Yeah.
I just like the assault. If I was gonna run anything in space in the 4, 5, 6 resource range, I'd probably add Valiant Assault Ship before I added the Desperado Freighter.
Yeah.
But you can ECL and do some good work with it it's
I can't remember. Is it a Rebel? I don't remember. I have to look back at the card.
Valiant Assault Ship is not.
No,
a
not
Rebel.
Valiant. The other one.
Desperado Freighter, no,
No,
it's
okay.
not a. No, there's no Rebel.
I was gonna say that's
There's
the
no
other thing
Rebels.
about the medal
Yeah.
ceremony with Zeb, too.
Yeah, Zed does give you one more thing to
I mean, it
consider
feels
medal ceremony.
like on my list,
Mhm.
everything's a Rebel except for Poe and Wrecker.
Right.
So it feels like why not red the medal ceremony?
Right.
So then we can talk about that. But so anyway,
You
yeah,
know,
I
you may need to
it's
put
like-
medal ceremony in. It's
Yeah.
just it's back to the what do you cut? I mean, you're at 50,
Yeah.
you're already cutting at 4 cause, which
And I
is
can't-
blasphemy to a lot of people.
Yeah, and I hate going down to 12 first term plays. It just
Oh, yeah,
feels
we
so
can't.
uncomfortable.
Well, especially since we need the 3. We could probably go to 14 and cut a Rebel Pathfinder.
We could.
Maybe. But then what do you so now in a Green Boba meta, Jeff, what do you think about Fighters for Freedom versus Sundari main deck? Which one should be main deck?
I would prefer Sundari's.
Yeah.
But if you're expecting a lot of control to counter the Boba, then the fighters are good. So I think there still is an argument for which one you want main. But if you're really worried about the mirror and the Bobas, I think Sundari main is the way to go.
I agree. And that issue with the control is, I think we're going to beat control game 1, even with. We already have such an advantage into the control decks, right?
Right.
I mean, we can go when we see it's a control matchup, a blue Bosk or a Kira, or I mean, maybe some blue Bobas now. I mean, I know our friend George the Hulk. We hope all of our Tampa and Orlando people are okay.
Yeah, I know, right?
Why our stream numbers are lighter today because
Yeah.
a lot of them probably don't
No
have the
power.
power and they're not going to waste their phone battery on watching our stream. I
Right.
hope if you're in the Orlando, Tampa area, turn off the stream and
Watch it later
conserve
on
your
YouTube.
phone battery. We hope you guys are all okay.
Yep.
But he's been working on a blue Boba list. So there's,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we saw a blue Iden. Jeff, did you see a blue Iden? One of Pasadena, not the Pasadena, one Kansas City maybe was it? One of the PQs.
I think it was
won.
Colorado.
Colorado. Yeah.
I saw
Yeah.
that. There was a blue Iden running around the Pasadena PQ as well. But there was not a lot of control there in Pasadena.
Did
I
you
want to
feel-
say it was maybe 18 to 20
Out of the
control
whole
decks
field.
total.
Did
Yeah.
you run into any during the day on your?
I
massive-
ran into a yellow Kira,
Oh,
which was
curious.
interesting.
Yellow
Yeah.
Kira.
So he had the
Oh.
bounty hunter cruise to recur his vigilances, and he had frozen and carbonite.
Okay, so he was doing real control stuff.
I've run that deck.
Hey, Emily!
Foxy
Hey.
Faye.
Hey, Emily, one of our testing team members, Emily, who's on Twitch as Foxy Faye. If y'all want to go subscribe and follow her channels too. Hey, Emily. So my point being though, Jeff, is just that I don't think we need to main deck anything for control because I think we already have such a
I don't know,
favorable
if we were in
matchup.
Orlando, we might need to.
Well, no, that's different. We're not.
that area of the world.
Yeah,
that
George's
likes to
part of the
run
world is going to be like 60% control. Yeah. But I don't know. My idea would be I think we need to main deck for Boba Green, Boba Yellow, and Green Sabine Mirror. And then move.
Feels that way.
Yeah, it really feels that way. I don't know. All right, so let's do something fun. And Emily, you can help us with this. One of our Bothan Network public members, because anyone can come join our Discord at
Right.
the Bothan Network. The link is here in the description of the Twitch channel. And it's also now show off another chance to show off.
Oh,
Look,
the
Emily,
swag.
we got our Bothan Network tokens. If you can see our Twitch stream.
They're pretty.
And on the back of them is a QR code that is a link for anyone to join the public.
Oh,
part of
those
our
are
Discord.
gorgeous.
Aren't they pretty?
Yeah.
They're nice and
And
thick
they're
and
3D
heavy.
they're
like 3D printed on the front.
Raised. I mean, they
Really
look
pretty.
fantastic.
Even the QR code is raised. It's neat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're super happy with those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll be bringing some to us in Vegas. You
Right.
guys
We'll
see
have
us
some
in
with
Vegas,
this, and
and then I'm
Emily,
mailing them out to people
make
too
sure
in the
you
Bothan Network.
DM me your address, Emily, so we can send you one of these. So
Oh,
we'll send
okay,
them out
yeah.
to all the testing
Jeff, of
teams
course.
and all the level 2s like Jeff. Yeah.
Yep. I'm gonna
So-
try to get out as many as I can when I'm at work this afternoon.
Yeah.
All that.
But the point of that, which now is that in our public Discord, Adam, who's Master Jedi Adam, was asking us on our coaching channel about his deck list. So here's what he's running at the PQ this weekend, Jeff. And so let's go through his list real quick. He's down to 2 medal ceremonies, which honestly I like. I'm much more happier with 2 medals because you really only want one on turn 3. And you don't want one after that. You don't want one before that.
Right.
The perfect medal ceremony, you draw it and the dark saber, and you have a wonderful turn 3, 4 resource turn.
Right.
So he's
I love
on
that.
2 R2s,
Stickers.
and then
No timely main deck.
no timely main deck. But I don't think you
But
were
and
either,
he's
right,
got
Jeff?
I
okay.
wasn't either.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it
Adam
it
might be
gives you a
right.
lot more
Mistake.
flexibility without them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he's got the two Adelphi's main deck.
And let's
too.
talk about Adelphi because I
Yeah.
know in our chat, Kentucky Bob. Hey, Kentucky Bob, glad you're hanging out with us. Please follow and subscribe. All those things you're supposed to say when you do these stream things. So Kentucky Bob is asking about the Adelphis. Now look back at your list. Let's look at here's Jeff's list. You had him in the board coming in. First off, after Pasadena, if you've updated your board, do you still have him in your sideboard?
I still have them in the sideboard. I couldn't I couldn't figure out a way to fit the Bright Hopes and the Adelphis both in the main board, and I
Right.
really wanted the Bright Hopes main board.
You really did.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I
Let's talk about
see
that.
that other list he had cut a metal ceremony, so that fit one slot, and I couldn't tell what else he cut for
He
the
cut a Rebel
Adelphis. But
Pathfinder and an R2.
Yeah. So he's running light on the
okay,
first turn drops, which scares
So
me.
he's running 13.
that's
9,
so
10,
that's
11, 12, 13. 13 is the
13's
13 is
minimum.
the
13's
Florida.
fine.
13's
Yeah,
okay. It's
13
not
is fine.
amazing.
It looks like he cut a
Something
red
else.
3 as well, though. So he's
That I
down a red
disagree
3
with.
and a metal.
But that might have been
Yeah, I
my
don't.
fault because we were lower on
We were.
red 3 before Bubba Green popped back up.
Right.
I think we maybe
Yeah,
showed y'all a list a week or two ago where I'd cut a red
Yeah,
3.
you had for sure.
But
I
once
tried that as well,
yeah,
and I didn't like it. Yeah.
once Bubba
I
popped up, we had to go back to 3 red 3s.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead, Emily.
I
Sorry.
oh sorry. I just may be biased. I honestly think Timely is the strongest card of set two.
That's so
Like
good.
I
It's
I
so
I
good.
Yeah.
I
love
I
it.
put it into Kira, and it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Right. It's a good card.
And to be able to get off 2 ECLs
Yeah.
sometimes, I mean, that wins you the game.
Jeff, when you were
Timely is
playing,
good, but in the Sabine mirror, you don't really want it a lot of times. You want to be just jamming your as many big units as possible every turn.
True. Yeah.
And a lot like against yellow boba, it's not really that
Not
great
really have
because you
time.
usually
Yeah.
want it against like the decks you're trying to race that are trying to control you. You can timely and do a sentinel or something and just keep your damage that's on the board going through. So having it in the sideboard gave me a lot of flexibility where for different matchups I was pulling out different cards. Like against Ray, I would pull out the Dark Sabers and bring the Timelies in because Ray has a lot of upgrade removal and Fang Fighters and Confiscates and she could kind of dirtle and
Right.
make it so you could get blown out by playing a Dark Saber. And
Yeah.
against
That
some
happened
other
to me.
decks, I would pull out like the Rebel Assaults for them. So it just gave me the flexibility where I could have them in the sideboard. I would bring them in a lot, but I would take out something different for every matchup.
so let's help Adam out by just walking through his sideboard. Heroic Sacrifice.
Yep, that's on my
Yep.
question mark
Uh,
too.
what-
But yesterday it won me some games.
In Pasadena and going forward, Jeff, which matchups do you sideboard in Heroic Sac?
So heroic sacks come in quite a bit. They come in for the mirror because in the mirror you pretty much want every single pump in your deck. So he already has the Adelphis in the main board, so I would bring in the heroic sacrifices, and I would be taking out wreckers because you
We don't
pretty
get to
much
6
never get to
resources.
6 resources.
It's
in the
over.
mirror.
And you definitely don't have
And
your
if you do a
ECL up.
wrecker, you don't have your ECL. The
You definitely
record's
don't
not
have your.
gonna
If your
matter.
ECL's still
Yeah.
up, it's really bad. You've had a very bad draw.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
have it
So
ECL'd. Yeah.
you're bringing in the heroic sacrifices there. You're bringing in the heroic sacrifices against control, and you're taking out the rebel assaults for control because they're not letting you get a bunch of rebels to stick the board. Usually, they're removing all your early rebels. So, like I said, the heroic sac is good for your late game units because they don't need to be rebels. It's really good against sentinels
That's true.
to pump up a unit that was going to die to the sentinel anyway. You pump it, it kills the sentinel. You draw a card. It's really great there. So it's great in the blue hero decks that have a bunch of sentinels as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those are mostly, and then I bring it in against the green boba too because you're kind of racing him, and like I said before, having those the pumps on those later units that aren't rebels is really nice.
And I'm a big believer in drawing the card. The fact that Heroic lets you draw a card is
Oh,
actually
sometimes
very
Yeah, it
it's
is
huge.
great.
yeah.
when
And
you
the
heroic
fact,
sacrifice and you draw that 4 cause off of it, oof,
oh,
it
chef's
feels
kiss,
nice.
baby. And let me
Yeah.
give y'all too a little pro tip. And early when set 2 was being previewed, I set up a puzzle in our Discord for people, and the puzzle was this: when you heroic sack with Poe, you get to draw the card before you have to discard for Poe, because you do everything on heroic sack 1st. So you can actually replace the heroic sack in your hand, heroic sack with Poe, and then discard the cards you drew to use Poe's abilities. So that's a little subtle. I don't know if that'll ever come up. You could probably play 1,000 games and that scenario wouldn't come up, but there's a little pro tip on
So draw your
heroic
card
sack.
before you complete the attack.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
You do everything on the card in SWO.
Yep.
So you get to draw, and then you can discard the card you drew with Poe that you're heroic sacking with. I thought it was pretty cool.
That is cool.
So you can actually get like 10 damage, just 6 plus the 2 heroic plus the discard on. Yeah, with only 1 card in your hand, you can get Poe to do 10 damage. So then we already talked about timely today. Confiscate, I think, is pretty obvious. I'm just bringing it in against Bosk. I'm bringing it in against in the mirror. They're running Dark Sabers now for sure, and I'm bringing it in for the Boba's armor. The only one I'm not sure about is Yellow Boba. I mean, is Yellow Boba running a lot of Boba's armor? Do I have a
Guess it
Yellow
depends
Boba
on
list up here? Let's look
I,
at the
I
list that
think
did really
most of them
well.
run 2 armors from the ones that I see around me.
Yeah.
Boba's armor is just awful.
I agree. They should ban that card.
It will probably be, in my opinion, the first ban card that they would do ban. And it's just so
Not
broken.
Darksaber?
See, I'm looking at this list, and you can still confiscate a blaster, but I don't see them running.
I
Boba's
did
armor.
not bring in confiscate against
Yeah.
this guy.
So really, we're only bringing in confiscate, Courtney.
Yep.
Go back to Adam's list in 3 situations:
Yep.
Bosk, and we're
mirror.
bringing it in the mirror, and we're bringing it in for Boba Green. And even in Boba
I bring it
Green,
in
I
against
don't know.
Kira. A lot of control decks run top target, even if they're not boss now.
Yeah.
Most Kiras that I play against have top target, so I still bring it in there because if you think about it, it's basically 1 resource to deal 4 to 6 damage because you're countering their heal, so it's essentially damage for 1 resource.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
A couple of chat comments to catch up on. Our local buddy JD is brought up a good point. You can also just use heroic as just a card draw. I've done that before too. He's done it.
Yeah.
All of us have probably done that. Where I just need to top deck something.
Especially after you've been Bazined and.
Yeah, for sure. And then he's asking a very good question on this confiscate right now. Do we main deck a confiscate? 1 or 2 confiscates main deck. If we know the meta is going to be 40 to 45% of the decks we want to have a confiscate in our deck against, because if you're going to lump in Kira and some of those blue controls,
Well, then do you just main deck Disabling Fangfighter instead as a unit?
That's an interesting.
Another question,
I don't know. I mean,
So my theory with all the sideboards, like I said before, is you're bringing out different things depending on the matchup. So when you're bringing in something like a confiscate, you have to cut a card that you want for a lot of matchups.
Right.
So having it in the sideboard, even though you want to bring it in a lot, you're pulling out different things for each individual matchup. So it gives you so much more flexibility. Like if you cut a Rebel Assault to fit a confiscate, that Rebel Assault is good in a lot of matchups as well.
Right.
And when you're playing in the mirror and you don't have your Rebel Assaults in, you're going to feel really bad,
100%.
even though you want a confiscate. But I just don't. I can't fit
that's a great
card
point.
that's dead.
That's the answer. We don't want to main deck confiscate because, like you said, we want to know what we're taking out of our deck to put in the confiscate.
Yeah, that's
based
the
on
hardest
what
part
the
is
matchup
knowing what to
is.
take out.
Right.
I don't think it's as hard to know what to put in, but knowing what to take out,
Yeah.
so you also don't mess
I
up
think
your
that's the
curve,
answer.
is so important.
Yeah, I think 100%. And so, so Adam is running the red 3 in his sideboard. Just to finish this up before you answer some chat comments. Again, we've already talked about this today. I think we all agree. All of us agree. You got to have 3 red 3s now. That Boba's so big. You've got to be able to ECL in Poe and kill Boba on the flip. And it's a space unit that's hitting for 3. They can't. If they ignore it, then you're going to hit for 3 every turn in space, which, as we know, is a weakness of Boba Green, and then also helps so much in the mirror to get. If you're getting that 1 extra point of damage from your units in the mirror, that's sometimes the race to 25 is all you have to do to win.
Yeah, if you have that red 3 out and you Rebel Assault and your units are all hitting for 5, 6 damage,
Right.
that's gonna win you the mirror really quick.
Yeah. So Adam is on the 2 Fighters for Freedom main deck and the 2 Sundari side. We've kind of talked it through today. It sounds like we're kind of reaching a consensus that Fighters for Freedom is going to be the board card to bring in against Control, because for me it's the 4 toughness. It's too easy to 4-LOM in and kill a Fighters for Freedom, but you can't 4-LOM in and kill the Sundari Peacekeeper and the Restore 2 and the Yellow Boba match. There's still going to be plenty of Yellow Boba. Yellow Boba's not going away this weekend. There's going to be Yellow Boba.
No.
It's not going to be as many as Green Boba.
Boba's
probably.
around forever.
Right. But in the Yellow Boba matchup, where we're the Control, and we're trying to kill all their units, and in the Mono Han matchup, same situation in the Mono Han, where we're trying to kill all their units, they have nothing to pump with their blasters, surprise strikes, and cunnings. The 5 toughness of the Sundari Peacekeeper is good, and it gives us the 2 restore. Sometimes just restoring 2, 4, 6 damage over the course of a game with the Sundari Peacekeeper was enough to keep us alive, to stabilize and win with our opposing records. But it really is only the...
But it is a rebel. That helps.
Well, yeah, Fighter for Freedom is a rebel.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's you cannot Fleet Lieutenant Sundari
Which
Peacekeeper.
I've tried to do on stream several times.
Yeah, but you can do it. You just don't get the
Okay, you
plus
just
2.
don't get the plus
right?
2.
That is the downside, yeah. When you have the Rebel Assaults and the Fleet Lieutenants and you're looking at that Sundari.
Right.
But then you get the experience off the Dark Saber, so
that's
you
so
do get
good.
that bonus.
That's
That
so
that
good.
and that has women games too before. So
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
There's
so
that
torn.
feels
When you get
so
that
good.
Sabine, Sundari, Dark Saber start, it's
Yeah,
pretty nice.
Yeah.
for sure.
And then I think the Bright Hope is obvious. I mean, the space decks,
You
the
have to
Bubba
have at least
yellows,
2.
the Millennium Falcon decks, the Han yellows, and
Crap, I
maybe
gotta
even
go to
Han
work.
green. What's that, Emily? You got to go back to work? Oh, is that what she
Yeah, I
said?
think that's what she said.
Okay.
All right, bye, Emily.
Thanks for
for
stopping
popping
in.
in. Please come and hang out with us more, Emily. We
Yep.
love talking to you.
We know you're working.
Yeah. So I think the Bright Hope's pretty obvious. And let me ask you a sideboard question though, Jeff, based on what we saw this weekend at PQs. At your PQ, the one you're the champion of, did you see any red boba, the real heavy space red boba?
I faced 2 of them. There's 2 in the whole. There's 2 in the whole field, and they both made the top 8.
And
So
you main decked the Bright Hopes. Oh my god,
Yeah.
that's so good, dude.
Yep. That's awesome.
Did you win any game
Yeah.
wins with those Bright Hopes against them?
I did not, but I also didn't
Ah.
draw them in the game ones.
Okay.
The first one I faced absolutely destroyed me because I wasn't ready for it. I didn't know about the deck,
Here's
like
red
the
boba
exact
deck
version that
list.
they were running.
Yeah.
And then in the top 8, I faced him, a different player on the same type of deck. And yeah, I think this is the one I faced in the top 8. Like pretty much the same exact
Same
deck.
list. Yeah.
Yeah.
Super
So they
space
get
heavy.
that super fast ground start, and they remove your turn 1 play with the ISB agent into Tarkin Town or the Daring Raid into Tarkin Town, and then they can drop a Greedo and a Stormtrooper on the same turn, or a 3/2 spaceship, and just start putting the pressure on you right away. And it's really tough.
So for us sideboarding, I guess we would go with the 3 Bright Hopes for sure. What else would we want to be doing? Let's go back to Jeff's sideboard.
So I brought in Timelies because with their 3/1s, the Beam unit is pretty key if they start ground. So having the option to Timely a Sabine into their turn 1 play is pretty huge. Or you can just Timely like an A-Wing into one of their fips and just trade, just to stem the bleeding. Because you really just want to hold off until you can get your Bright Hope down or get some Sundaris out there. So I would definitely want Sundaris to get the restore going, because they just put so much damage so fast on you that it's really tough to stabilize.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good. That was a great sideboard discussion. Feel free to drop more sideboard questions in our coaching forum in the Bothan Network Discord where we all hang out. Earlier comments, I'm going to catch up. I know Mitch was hanging out with us. He asked a really good question because there's going to be more Boba Green. The more that Boba Green techs to beat Sabine, the harder their matchup against Kira and Palp. Are these lists going to be greedy this weekend and try to stay ahead of control? I mean, that's a really good question. If you want to play Boba Green this weekend, but now everybody knows that everybody's playing Boba Green this weekend,
Right.
it's kind of like, what adjustments are they going to have to make? Because we're expecting to see more control decks, which motivates us to play Sabine even more. But what will the green decks what will Bubba Green have to do to beat control? Whatever they do with their deck list, I think would help us beat them, right? I don't think their answers to control are going to...
You would think.
Yeah.
That's what you would hope, at least, is that they
Right.
start planning for the control that's going to be planning for them, and then Sabine kind of just is the second thought that they're not really worried about anymore.
Yeah.
And you can just sneak in and hammer them down.
I know that was a good question, K-Mitch. Glad that you're hanging out with us.
Yeah.
So lots of chat, and please, y'all keep chatting away. Is the meta call on Timely versus Main? Okay, Metal Ceremony. Yeah, we talked about this a little bit earlier. 007. Courtney and I are on Timely Intervention over Metal Ceremony. And then there's such good synergy though between those two cards, and Jeff and almost everybody else who's a Sabine player but us, rightfully so probably, is on Metal Ceremony. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and look at how we've broken down your deck for everybody. Oh, you put it all upside down.
Oh no! Did I really?
Yes, you put it all upside down. But we'll
we can flip it real quick.
Yeah, and we can actually just look at deck lists anyway.
Yep.
We should start shuffling up and playing. Jeff,
Yep.
you want to help Courtney beat me in the mirror?
That's right.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Well,
So one thing I did miss out on.
So what we're gonna do different is her deck's gonna have the Fighters for Freedom main deck, and mine's gonna have the two Sindaris. So we can see a little, just see how that plays in the mirror. Other than that, the only other difference between our decks is she's gonna have 3 Rebel Pathfinders because she's still more worried about the shielded units and the Boba yellow.
3.
And I'm gonna have 2 Pathfinders and 1 X-wing. I'm more worried about the space decks.
Yep.
I think that the Red Boba space and the Kylo space, I think stuff like that is, I think, what we're gonna see a lot more of this weekend. I think people are gonna
I've still got to figure out my side.
because Boba Green is weak to space. I mean, Boba Green.
Once people see that two red Bobas out of 2 made the top 8 out of 116 people,
yeah,
I think some more people are going to be going on to that deck. I know I went to locals 2 days later, and out of 10 people, 2 of them were on red Boba.
Wow.
So
crazy.
people are trying that deck out at least, and
Sure.
it is a very good deck. It's very fast, very aggressive, and it can be tough to deal with if you don't have a plan.
So my plan then is to go ahead and main deck 1 X-wing instead of 2 Pathfinders, 1 X-wing instead of 3 Pathfinders. And I might really regret it when I play nothing but yellow Bobas, and I wish I had them to kill my crafty smugglers or Kiras, and I wish I had them to kill shielded stuff. But my gut right now, if my feet were being held to the fire, is we're gonna see more red Boba, we're gonna see more Kylo yellow, we're gonna see more of that Tarkin deck that's so good with one of our locals, Louis, plays it so amazing. He has a yellow Tarkin deck that him and Thomas have worked on. I think those kind of decks might really thrive in a Boba Green in control, trying to counter a Boba Green meta. I don't know. That's an analysis, Jeff. What are your thoughts? Maybe.
Yeah, the X-Wing makes a lot of sense. It's even good in Akira. Akira doesn't have a whole lot of space. They have the Inferno 4 usually, and that's about it early game, and that can't even kill the X-Wing and survive. So I think having an X-Wing is fine. I know I went back and forth on the Pathfinder, but I was expecting some Rays and some Kiras, and so that's why I chose the Pathfinder. And I was not expecting the Boba Reds.
Yes.
In a Boba Red world, maybe I do want that X-Wing.
That one more spaceship idea. Because
Yeah.
it's almost like we did with the one Zeb. You have a 4th Poe. It's almost like we have a 4th A-Wing, even though it's not as good as A-Wing in some ways.
Right.
It is good
It
in
is.
A-Wing. It is better, though, when they hit you with their 3-2 Kylo ship, and
Right.
all they can
Yeah.
do is trade with the
Feels
X-wing.
better, yeah.
So that does.
One of the
feel
games
better.
I got blown out was because I had no turn 1 play, and I mulliganed into an A-wing start, and I was on the draw, and I had to put an A-wing into a 3-2 ship, and it just got killed for free, and
Yeah.
I just got blown out.
So it's kind of
So-
like our same logic with the Zeb being the 4th Poe, is that that gives us one more first turn spaceship that we can wing leader.
Yep.
Because I think, like you said, A-wing into wing leader is so good. So this just gives us, if you play one X-wing, it gives you one more